Get started. Welcome everyone to our latest family diplomacy dialogue. Um, this is the seventh of nine family diplomacy dialogues we're holding this year from March to November from 12 to 1 p.m. Eastern time here in the United States. And today we have Naledi. Naledi, can you pronounce your last name? Mopanza?
Banza. So, Banza. A plosive
Mbanza.
N.
Okay, Mbanza. Um, Joining us actually from Norway, but she's from South Africa, is going to be talking to us about her family. She's got, just to remind you, you've got 10 minutes. You can take up to 15 minutes, but I will be keeping time and trying to keep you
Yes,
from
thank you.
getting lost in your discussion. Um,
Yeah.
and that will be followed by open discussion. And so I do encourage all of you to write questions and comments during her presentation, and then we'll come to those during the discussion, and I'll ask you to chime in. So without further ado, Naledi, do you want to share your slides?
Yes, I'm going to try my best. Please let me know if it's going. There's always problems. We're trying to share a screen. Okay, so I'm on my laptop. I'm going to try and get onto the correct. And then file, slideshow. There we go. Is
Okay.
it showing at all?
It is, yes.
Yay! Okay, firstly, I want to say thank you so much, Paul, for having me here today. My name is Naledi Mbanza Miguel. Um, I sometimes try to spice it up with taking my husband's surname. So that's the Miguel side of things. And yes, like Paul already said, I'm really happy to be here and to also just be part of the, learning life family diplomacy and the idea of sharing about our families to understand a bit more about different cultures and peoples. So I might be an interesting case because I feel like I'm a trifle of cultures and peoples. Yeah, so I will start with the title on the screen, and I thought I should just title it The South African Zulu Girl with a Setswana Name and an Angolan Husband. And simply why? Because I'm from South Africa. I am Zulu speaking, which is one of the South African 11 official languages. I'm also Zulu, which is a cultural and traditional and indigenous group in South Africa. I have a Setswana name. My dad is from a different so-called tribal group. He's Tswana, so he gave me my name, Naledi, which I'll explain later on. And I'm married to a delicious Angolan man who then gives me the surname Miguel and adds to this trifle of identities that I'm building in my life. So a little bit about myself, actually a lot. I think this is a lot more than many people will know about me on a regular day, but that's the idea of, right, family diplomacy. So I was born in 1994, and in South Africa, that was the dawn of democracy. If you know a bit of South African history, 1994 would be April 1994 would be the first democratic elections following South Africa's dark, treacherous past of apartheid, where Black and people of color were um, basically suppressed, oppressed by the white minority. And so, what apartheid, the end of apartheid meant is, voting by all peoples and a significant shift in the fabric of society. So, I count as what is called born frees, which are meant to be children born free of apartheid. So, anyone born after 1994 is known as a born free, but especially children born in 1994 at the cusp of the end of apartheid and the beginning of democracy are called born free. So I'm a born free in South African language. And yeah, that is a very important part of this presentation because you'll see what it influenced the schools that I was able to go to, the opportunities I had, a lot of the access that I had to navigate. And yeah, I think I'll share a bit more as we go along. So I was raised with my grandmother as my primary caregiver. So my grandmother being my maternal grandmother, that's my mom's mom, who is now unfortunately late. We lost her last year. She was a phenomenal woman. She really was the backbone of our family. Our family was matriarchal, so she was like the not symbolic head. She was the practical head of the families. She was the one who's attending parents' evening. She's attending our sporting events, our violin recitals. She was the one who came to school when she got called by the principal because we were naughty. She was the one who supported our parents while they continued at school, because all our parents had us. When I say our parents, my direct brother, I'll explain that as well, and also the kids of my mom's siblings. So while our parents were in school, she sort of took over the role of being a primary parent, almost forcing them as well to keep us in the family home instead of raising us in their own little apartments, and really kept our family together and made us sort of united in the way that we are. So I think I should pause a little bit and then explain. My mom has two kids. It's myself and my older brother. My older brother is 4 years older than me. So he was born during apartheid, towards the end of apartheid in 1990. So um, yeah, so I've got an older brother, but I grew up with my cousins who I grew up with as my siblings. I call them my brothers and sisters, and their names are Zizile, Snetemba, and Ngobile. So Z is on the call right now with Sismo in the same room, and Sne is busy holding it down at home in a picture of our family home that I'll show you later on. So in some ways, I'm the youngest born. In some ways, I'm older sister because I grew up with younger siblings. But that's just, it's not even a unique story in South Africa. There's a lot of households where grandmothers will support their children while they're trying to help them achieve some of their goals, whether it's education or working in a different city, but still keeping the family together. Right. So that's my who I was raised by. I stayed in, and this is an important part of my life. I stayed in an urban township with visible divides. So you will see the picture later on, but I grew up. So townships in South Africa were areas where Black people were put on the outskirts, far from the central business district, as part of the segregation that was the bread and butter of apartheid South Africa. So what that looked like is the more outskirty, dry, basically unkept lands were allocated to the Black and to Black people and people of color. And then the prime lands close to the central business districts, the more lush, well taken care of with better amenities and access to the beach, et cetera, were allocated to the white minority. So you'll find that a lot of these townships, they were separated according to races or so-called races. So I was obviously then in a Black township. While I grew up in what was initially meant to be a Black township, there were also colored townships, and colored is not a derogatory term in South Africa. It's a cultural group, unlike with America. There's also Indian townships, and townships that are almost ambiguous and don't fit neatly into these levels. And then you've got the suburbs, which were always white areas. And another interesting fact, which is still sort of, you can feel, right, as you're going through each section when you're traveling, that you're leaving, you're going through a Black area, a colored area, an Indian area, and then the sort of mixed area. And then, okay, I'm in a white suburb now because the cleanliness, the quality of buildings, the number of hospitals there around will also give you a clue as to what area this could have been during apartheid. So I stayed in an urban township, which is where my family had been since about the 1980s. And yeah, so my grandmother, that was her primary house with my grandfather. But even within townships, there was further divides because I understand we were part of the lower middle class. Nearer to the river would be establishments like and informal settlements where people were still trying to build but were living in quite abject poverty. So they lived literally off of the land. They are staying by the river. They are trying to grow in small plots of land what they can grow. They're also working far away, close to the business district, excuse me, but are still obviously living in a situation where there's a lot of poverty. So I had friends who stayed in those areas growing up, and I had friends who stayed in the more concrete, paved roads. It was a very interesting way to grow up, but I enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. And then my suburbs. So part of the urban divide, the racial aspects, I can really resonate with a lot because my commute to school was 2 hours. This was like without traffic. So a lot of Black kids who were able to go to these so-called former white schools, which of course are called former Model C schools are also called yeah, so it's a bit problematic to say former white schools, but that's what they were because under apartheid, especially these were schools that were reserved, well-resourced and maintained and reserved for white people only. But with the slow sort of independent nature of different establishments, some started accepting Black students. But at the end of apartheid, eventually all of them had to open up. And you can imagine what life was like for those who were going to high schools and primary in 1994. But by the time I was going to school in the 2000s, I went to preschool in a Black area with that was an experience. But then I eventually moved to another colored run or a preschool that was in a colored area. Eventually, I would end up in a primary school in a poor white area, and then a high school, which was sort of these elite schools that were previously private schools for white people, but eventually was a public school that was expected to receive multicultural identity. So very interesting. And as a child, you already are aware of these dynamics, but growing up as a born free meant that instead of assuming the superiority that was given to white people because of yeah, because the idea is also in your home, you have phrases your grandmother would be like, oh no, but you don't upset the white people are this, white people are that, right? Because of the sort of inherited and indoctrination of white supremacy, even within the home. But when you go to school, you have white children that are also lacking stuff like they don't have shoes or they don't have socks or they don't come to school because they don't have underwear. And some of the blacker kids would be more affluent, right? They'd be driven to schools in these fancy cars. So growing up as a born free, going to these different schools and environments was really quite a something. Anyways,
Naledi, just to keep it,
yeah,
you've got 5 minutes.
perfect. Right. So I'm hoping everyone's reading as I'm going along. And then I'm just going to skip along. I was inspired to go to university, the same university my mom went to. I'll show you pictures afterwards. Because I grew up with like a massive picture of her in her like graduation party outfits, right in our living room. And my grandmother would talk about her achievements all the time. And I was like, I need me some of that. So, yeah, that was a very important part of my upbringing, just seeing that and believing that it's possible. And I can also then go and do more than high school, get a diploma, graduate, etc. So, um, I fell in love with my crush in high school. I went to a girls' school. He went to the boys' school equivalent of the school I was explaining now was former Model C and whatnot. And later on, we would get married. And then at the moment, I'm currently reading for my PhD. I've got a deep interest in HIV and access to HIV medicines for especially young people because Umlazi, is in a province called KwaZulu-Natal, which is one of the has got the highest prevalences of HIV infection in South Africa, or actually in the world, in terms of numbers. So anyway, so my name, I think I did touch a little bit on it. My name is Naledi. My father gave me the name. It means star. It really means a lot to me because I do believe names are something you need to work up towards. I do resonate with being a bright, vibrant character. But that's always interesting because Zulu people immediately can see that there's something a bit different with my sort of heritage because Naledi is a Setswana name and I am Zulu speaking. Meaning of being Zulu people are not persona grata in South Africa. We have a reputation for being domineering, and a bit of a history on that is Zulu people under apartheid and colonialism were given the transport route. So they were given power over the taxi transport routes in South Africa. So that meant they were more dispersed, but that also meant that they were unyielding in learning the cultures of the peoples that in the areas where they were. So that also follows for the reputation of being stubborn and unyielding. But it was also part of the apartheid and colonialism machine to give a certain group power over other groups and to sort of perpetuate their superiority, which was part of the machine of colonialism and apartheid in South Africa. Um, Meaning of being Black, I always show up as a Black person. It means so much to me. So also wearing my hair today matters so much to me because even in South Africa, colorism, disrespect for Black bodies and what they represent is a big thing. So it's always, I think, politically important to really assert who you are. For me, being Black is not just speaking my home language, and it's also just celebrating a lot of my what was, I guess, used by different systems to make us feel inferior. I think I've already explained a little bit about how apartheid is still visible in how we live today. So you can imagine as a black, I'm also feminist, a black woman who's proud of who she is, moving to, one of the most expensive, whitest countries in the world. People are like, "Are you a sellout?" I'm like, "No, I moved for love." And so that's part of the things that I have to navigate with moving, because a lot of South Africans that do move, or that moved even when apartheid was coming to an end, the idea was you're leaving South Africa and what you think it's going to look like, and you're going to better or greener pastures. I do not believe in that. I'm an activist in how I live and move, and I think the move to Norway was a bit tough as well because I had to balance that. Yeah.
You've got 2 minutes to show photos. So
Okay.
please get
Yes.
to the
Okay.
photos.
So we're going to skip all the way to photos, and I'm hoping we can get into a bit of a discussion. So this is my grandmother as a young woman wearing some traditional Zulu attire. I can always go back to explain, but it's beads, it's the skirts, it's pride, the hair, it's her own hair that is being braided there. Um, and then that's her in home earlier on a few years ago. Well, not a few years ago, a lot of years ago. And that's my brother, my older brother. That's our current family home featuring our dogs. And those are the nappies that they tear apart and leave outside. And that's my mom at her second graduation, third. I think it's her third graduation. This is when she had changed her careers from being a teacher to being a pharmacist. That's my grandfather. That's little lady at the bottom there. And that's my grandmother. Both my grandfather and my grandmother were big on education. So when my mom got her PhD last year, finally, she was really excited. It came at the cusp of losing my grandmother, but it was kind of poetic as well that she supported her, took in her kids, and told her, go back to school. I'll make sure that your kids are able to grow up well, and just focus on school. We'll make this work. Right. And this is an example of a graduation party that we'd have. This is must have been 96, 97. I'm not sure. Maybe my aunts and my moms will be able to correct me. Little Naledi is somewhere there by the maroon, by the mustard aunt, who is another one of my mom's sisters. And this is my graduation. Was it my first? Yeah, I don't remember. Yes, this is my first graduation from the same university my mom went to. So it was really a special moment because my grandmother was able to be there. That's my grandmother seeing me make some traditional Zulu bread, which is called steamed bread, but it's a Zulu staple. Let me just put it that way. She was very strict about how you make food. If you made it horribly, she said, don't do this again. Ask next time. This is the love of my life, Pedro Miguel. We met in high school. This was him visiting me in varsity. This is him and I during one of our wedding ceremonies last year. And then this is a contentious picture for many. He also doesn't like it, but I'm hoping someone will be interested enough to ask me, why am I on my knees for a man? But I love it. I can explain it later. This, I love sharing about the Zulu hat. It's called Istolo or Inkehli. It's worn by married women, but of course, with anything with modernization, anyone can wear it now. And then this is me, and I guess what I represent, my HIV interests, and being the researcher that I am. And thank you so much. And sorry for rushing through everything. Over to you, Paul.
All righty. Thank you, Naledi. This is great. Let me put people. So if you can turn off your slides, that would be great, and
Sure, sure,
so that
sure,
we can
sure.
all kind of see each other.
Stop share.
Great. And let me put things in gallery view here so everybody can see each other, or at least I can see all everybody. Um, Actually, before we start conversation, if you guys could all, if to the extent that you don't have your cameras on, please turn on your cameras at least briefly, because we're trying to take a photo of everybody. So if you could, on three, um, smile as well. Um, one, two, three, smile. Fantastic. All righty, guys. Conversation here. So we are going to run into the Zoom chat comments. But if you could raise your hands electronically, that would really help things. If you have a question or if you have a comment, please raise your hand. That'll be most helpful. And so we've got Chia joining us from United Arab Emirates. First, go ahead, Chia.
Thank you, Paul. Uh, Hi, Nelly. Thank you so much for your presentation. I really enjoy it, and I get to listen, hear some things that I never knew about them in South Africa, even though I'm in Africa. And it was really, really rushing. Unless you pay a really great attention, I won't be able to hear what you are saying. However, it was nice. And also, I just want to ask this question, like now, so now there is something in South Africa. They said that they are seizing lands from the whites, and they don't want them. There is a lot of hate against the white. I don't know if that is true. You will be in a better position to explain to us. And yeah, if your presentation, if it was a bit summarized, we can really you would have taken a good time to elaborate in other things because you yourself you were rushing and you had a lot of pressure. Thank you so much.
Naledi, did you understand the question?
I did. In short, would it be about the hatred
It's
of white people in South Africa?
yeah,
Okay.
that there are reprisals against white people in
Yeah.
South Africa.
Oh, so do you want me to answer each one? Sorry, I thought we were gonna do. I can do that. That's
Well,
actually
yeah,
helpful
yeah. So I
as
mean,
a
if
category.
they have a question, by all means, answer each one after
Okay.
each one. Yeah.
Okay, that's perfect. Thank you so much for the question. I think the best way to answer this, because we also have this American link, would be to talk about um, the tensions between the US and South Africa at the moment, based on a false narrative of Afrikaner, white Afrikaner killings. So oh gosh, we just lost one of the journalists who actually debunked or helped to sort of expose that there's a misinformation and disinformation campaign about a white genocide taking place in South Africa. So, first thing I want to say is South Africa is a violent country. It's been labeled as the rape capital of the world. It's also a very tough place. A lot of the violence and the system of violence is inherited from, I guess, our very, very young history from apartheid. And that definitely has impacted a lot of the relationships happening now. But anyway, so the white genocide. So my understanding of the white genocide allegations have to do with white Afrikaners feeling threatened over their land. So when apartheid ended in South Africa, what happened is um, some people will refer to Zimbabwe. And what happened in Zimbabwe with white people being sort of ousted and violently killed and harmed and ostracized from their farms. So there was this fear that that would be the same thing happening in South Africa. So what happened is, as part of the negotiations for a peaceful democracy, part of the important things that the white minority sought to keep was access over their lands. So the redistribution or restitution of land back to the original owners prior to apartheid and colonialism was part of the project that was very contentious. Now, my also understanding, I did journalism in undergrad, is that it's a narrative. There's a false narrative that is going around. For an example, there was a picture of a mass grave, a picture of like multiple white crosses to show the number of farmers that have been killed. It was quite impressive. It was stark and really disturbing. Um, but a simple check and tracing back to where the picture came from, it was a demonstration. So it was an artistic demonstration that was meant to be evocative to show the gravity of the issue. However, when you start looking at the statistics of farm killings, majority of the people that are killed in farms are Black people. I think there's a lot of data that is going on out there. Um, that can attest to this. I am not actively researching into this space, but even Trump has, I think, come to terms with the fact that he was duped into thinking that there's a white genocide. However, because of politics, he has to stick to his grounds, but his relationship with Elon Musk has been compromised. So, in my understanding, of course, there's racial tensions in South Africa. We do have a race problem because remember, apartheid didn't end because white people started respecting, or white South Africans started respecting Black South Africans. It ended because there was already protests, there was already boycotting. It was no longer financially viable. South Africa was being barred from sports. South Africa was being barred from international participation and the open market. So the idea was, oh my gosh, we're actually being ostracized from the world. It's no longer viable. we have to end apartheid. However, we're not taught this in school. You have to study all the way up to higher education level in order to get this level of critique. Because what we're taught in schools, and I'll tell you this as a born free, is, oh no, F.W. de Klerk had a dream, God spoke to him, and he decided he's going to start being more peaceful. So you can imagine that because it was not something that reflected what people wanted, they did not want apartheid to end. You can imagine that the racial tensions, the white superiority, the Afrikaner nationalism, which is based on Black suppression, would be what goes forward. So there's definitely racial tensions in South Africa. When I'm in South Africa and I stay in my mom's house, we live in a predominantly white area. I actually chose to learn Afrikaans when I was in high school instead of isiZulu. I'm fluent in isiZulu. I went to church and spoke isiZulu. I chose to speak Afrikaans because I didn't want to not be able to hear what is being said to me or about me. Currently in South Africa, if you want to be a lawyer, a lot of law firms expect you to be able to speak English and Afrikaans. So that should already tell you some of the inheritance of the unfair lack of access that carries what whiteness and white Afrikanerness comes with. If you have got English, it's actually Afrikaans and English. If you've got those two languages, they're still seen as superior. You still have better access to opportunities. And I am part of the people who chose to learn Afrikaans, not because um, I believe that Afrikaans is a small language that is threatened and we need to keep it alive because I recognize that I might have access to certain resources such as jobs, opportunities. I'll have seats at tables that I'm welcome to just because I can speak this language. But the problem is Afrikaans is not even top 3 languages spoken in South Africa. What's interesting and problematic still is Zulu is part of the languages that are most spoken in South Africa. So I think in one of the slides I did put that, but I hope that gives you a bit of perspective. There's definitely racial tensions. Yeah.
Sorry
Oh,
about that.
yeah.
Yeah, mute. Sorry about that. Maria, who's joining us from Brazil, I think who's also with her mother and maybe translating for her mother.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Hello, everybody. I'm sorry, my audio is coming out from the computer and we are using the cell phone as the camera. We had some technical issues, so I hope it's okay to understand. I would like to thank you for the presentation. It was awesome. Me and my mom, we also love to see the pictures. It's very nice to have this kind of connection. My mom is a teacher. I am an English teacher here in Brazil. My mom is a teacher. She teaches kids for like 20 years. And every time we join the meetings, we are always very interested in the educational system. And we would like to know, I know that you talked a little bit about your experience at school, but we would like to know how was the Black representation at your time? And if you know how it is working nowadays at school, because we know that it is very important. Brazil is a very mixed country, and we also know that